Good afternoon, everybody. I saw the theme for this conference, which, as you can see there, is called the Stock Called India. And the company I represent and I work for, and I've been for many years, we have a brand which I hope all of you will be familiar with, which is Kingfisher beer. And we like to say that Kingfisher is the pride of India. So it gives me immense pleasure to present to you the story of the pride of India in a conference called the Stock of India. Now I have to get this technology to work. Okay. Just a little bit about, before I come on to what UB is and what we do and how we build our brands and our company indeed. All of you know this. And I just put this slide in the beginning to just put in context where we are today, what our country is about. And indeed, all of you are in the profession that you are in because India is a young and vibrant country. India is a country with great hope, great future, great potential. We are a young country. And in this young country with immense potential, immense growth, all the leading brands and companies in the world are here. And as I said earlier in a slightly different way, we find that Indian youth is very, very proud to be Indian. India is a very large alcohol market, but it may surprise you to know that it's a relatively small beer market. This gives you relative sizes. But in terms of pure alcohol consumption, beer is only 11% of all alcohol that is consumed in this country. And now if you compare this to Europe, America, large parts of Asia, where almost 60 to 70% of all alcohol consumed is beer. And why is this so? One of the key reasons why this is so is that the tax on alcohol, and especially on beer, is very, very high. In India, alcohol is a state subject, which means each state has its own rules and regulations and tax structures. And over 50% of the price that you pay for a bottle of beer goes to the government, which compared to most other industries is almost twice. And within spirits, in comparison to spirits too, as you see in this chart, the tax per unit of pure alcohol on beer is significantly higher than on spirits, which makes spirits a much more affordable form of alcohol delivery, which is why about 60 to 65% of all alcohol consumed in India is whiskey. But having said that, we genuinely believe that beer has a great future. And why is that so? Because we have a young demographic, because we have rising levels of affluence, rising levels of aspiration, and beer is far more exciting. Beer is a healthier alternative, and there is a movement in this country, albeit at the upper segment of the economic strata, towards lower alcohol products. Per capita consumption of beer, and indeed any category, and beer is no different, is relatively low. The per capita consumption of beer in India is 2 liters. And when you say 2 liters, the denominator is clearly the entire population of India, which is 1.2 billion or more, of which more than half are really below the poverty line and don't consume anything. As compared to this, the global average is around 30 liters. And consumption in many parts of the developed world is 70 to 80 liters. So there is a long way to go. And that's what gives us great confidence that this business in India has great potential for growth because of rising affluence, relatively low consumptions today, and a movement towards lower forms of alcohol. Within beer, and this is just as a matter of interest for you, strong beer, that is beer between 5 to 7% alcohol, dominates. It's about 85% of all beer consumed in India is strong beer. So I would guess most of you here would be consuming Kingfisher Premium, which is what we call mild beer. But bulk of India consumes strong beer. And it is not something which is restricted to small towns. I don't say rural because in our business there isn't so much rural consumption because there are no outlets. But even if you look at a city like Delhi, the national capital, 84% of all beer consumed is strong beer. Even in Mumbai, where we are today, 65% of all beer consumed is strong beer. In Bangalore, which is, I would say erroneously perhaps, it often referred to as the beer capital of India, 60% of all beer consumed is strong beer. And people consume it because they like it. It's good quality product offered not just by us, but by the entire competition. And in fact, the single largest brand of beer in this country is our brand called Kingfisher Strong. Now, what are the headwinds facing the industry before I come to the other interesting bits? Clearly, the threat of prohibition is a headwind. We've seen that the state of Bihar declared prohibition in April. There have been murmurs about this in a few other states. But as an industry, as an alcohol body, we don't believe that the threat of prohibition is sustainable, simply because it has never worked. Why has it never worked? Is that all states depend to a large extent on their revenue from alcohol, because today and even tomorrow when GST comes, and I will talk a little bit about that just after this, revenues from alcohol or the subject of alcohol remains within the ambit of the states. So without this, it becomes very, very difficult for the states to be able to meet their obligations. 2 decades back, Andhra Pradesh had declared prohibition. They had to roll it back within 2 years. The state of Haryana had also declared prohibition, but within a year, they had to roll it back. So in our estimate, yes, these are clear threats, but we don't really believe that these are sustainable threats. GST. Now, all of you by now know GST, you've read about GST, you know what the implications are. For us, the implications are a little bit different. For us, as an alcohol industry, the implications are different simply because we have been kept out of the constitutional amendment bill, which means alcohol will not be subject to GST. However, it's not that simple, because a lot of the materials that we use as our input materials are subject to GST. So we buy bottles and cartons and various other input materials which go into manufacture of our end product, which is beer, are GST-able. But where we lose out is that unlike all other manufacturers who will be able to get input credit, we will not. So for us, it's a locked cost. We as an industry have been in dialogue with government, and the very fact that the government has now decided that GST will come in 4 slabs and not 1, it's a matter of great comfort, because then it allows various, I will talk you through it, I think we've lost the slides. It gives us the comfort that we will be able to navigate some of the negative aspects of GST. However, the ideal situation would have been that we were a part of GST, but we are not. UBL, that's why I'm here. What is United Breweries Limited? We are the market leader in this business. We have over 50% share of the Indian beer market. We recognize that notwithstanding all the government regulations, and I'm not going into the details, and you would perhaps be familiar with some of them, notwithstanding all that, the consumer doesn't know that. It is, at the end of the day, a brand's business, just like any other. So when you are in a brand's business, you have to ensure that the brands remain contemporary, remain desirable for consumers, not just yesterday or today, but also tomorrow. And our success has been based on the fact that we have constantly ensured that our brands remain desirable. Yes, of course, we have the organization, of course, we have manufacturing facilities, but consumers buy brands. And the reason we have 50% share is that we have ensured that the brands remain at the forefront of consumers' choice. And how do we do that? Of course, we don't have direct advertising available to us, because direct advertising is not allowed in our category. But at the same time, the rules do not preclude us from sponsorships, other associations, from packaging, from communication at the point of sale and consumption. But for communication, we'll use these three pillars. We use sports, and I will talk to you briefly about how we have leveraged sports. We use music. We use fashion. And a lot of people used to ask as to why we do that. And it's important to link this to the fact that beer in India is an expensive alcoholic product. Unlike in many parts of the world, beer in India is not the cheapest form of alcohol. It's perhaps the most expensive form of alcohol. And because of that, we try to associate our brands with those platforms and those activities which give the perception and which give the image to a brand of being glamorous, stylish, fun, desirable. And even when we leverage sports or music or fashion, we ensure that the communication that goes with that is in sync with our desire of making our brands desirable, glamorous, fashionable, and stylish. Now, Indian Premier League or IPL is arguably the biggest sporting event which happens in this country. We have been associated with IPL from day one, 2008. However, our association, and I'd like to say, has been unique because we are not a central sponsor of the event. Instead, we have sponsorship arrangements with several of the teams. Last year we had with sponsorship deals with 6 of the teams. Typically we work out deals at least 5 or 6 teams. And we use that platform of sponsoring these various teams to communicate the message that all these players are divided by teams, but they're united by Kingfisher. And over the last 8 years, our slogan of divided by teams, united by Kingfisher has become rather iconic. We have also extended our association with the IPL into special edition cricket packs, and these packs were in the market this year. What I'd like to do is just now show you one ad that we ran this year with the various players to illustrate to you how the IPL has been leveraged by us. Can I have the ad film, please?
Are you ready for the good time? Divided by teams, united by Kingfisher, the original social network.
This is an ad we did this year, and we've been doing similar ads with various players over the years. Now, all of you who live in this country know that each of those players is iconic, each of those players is a superstar, and if we were to go and do individual sponsorship deals with each of them, it would have cost us a fortune. However, and I hope none of you are team owners here, but by virtue of us doing interesting and clever sponsorship deals, we've been able to put together this ad which showcases 20-25 superstar cricketers into one ad for Kingfisher. And this is what makes the brand larger than life. You know, I've talked to you about this already. Now, Formula One. Now, Formula One is a niche sport. But I can tell you, and I think I speak on behalf of all the men here, driving cars and driving fast cars is something which is something inborn in every male. We all love cars, we all love fast cars. There is a certain image every male has about what fast cars mean, what the excitement of Formula One racing is. Not everybody watches, because watching a Formula One race may not be the most exciting thing. It can be if you're fond of it, but the imagery around Formula One is of perhaps being the most glamorous sport on this planet. And we sponsor a team called the Force India team, which it's got many sponsors, but Kingfisher is the lead sponsor of the team. And we leverage it through various associations. We have promotions that we run for consumers. We have signages in the shops. We give giveaways. We do a lot of stuff to ensure that the association of Formula One, the Force India Formula One team, and Kingfisher is closely linked. And why Force India? Because by virtue of its ownership, the Force India Formula One team is seen to be a Kingfisher team. It is akin to what we did with IPL. Whilst we don't sponsor any IPL tournament, but we're seen as one of the lead sponsors. So same way here, our association with Force India gives us the advantage of appropriating all the values, positive values of Formula One to Kingfisher brand. This is another small example of what we do with music. Now we do various platforms on music, but as showcased to you too here, you know that Sunburn is the largest EDM festival in this country. We are one of the lead sponsors of Sunburn, which till last year used to happen in Goa, but this year is shifting to Pune, I'm told. We also used to organize something called the Kingfisher Great Indian October Fest, an event in Bangalore, which we used to make both a beer and a music festival. And within that, we used to provide experience to people which would be a little different, a little bit exciting, which again is a hallmark of the Kingfisher brand. What I'd like to do now is show you a slightly longish film taken at one of the Oktoberfest events that we did in Bangalore a couple of years ago to show to you how we use these events and give it a slightly different spin so as to be able to capture the imagination of our consumers. Can I have the film, please? Okay, fashion. Again, we don't do fashion events, we don't own a fashion label, but we use the platform of fashion once again to appropriate the values of fashion to some of our brands. Those of you who live in Mumbai know that since last year we've been sponsoring the Derby in Bombay. It's called the Kingfisher Ultra Derby. We also produce a calendar, the Kingfisher swimsuit calendar every year. Now both these activities give the Kingfisher brand the glamorous edge. So all these properties I showcased to you, music, film, sports, we do many more things, but this is an example of how we use various platforms to ensure that the sheen around the Kingfisher brand always remains strong. We are perhaps the most active brand in this country, consumer brand in this country, across categories on digital. And we have been consistently recognized as so. Recently we did a masthead with those of you who have seen the Dhoni film. You have also noticed that on television we ran a very extensive ad campaign which featured Sushant Singh Rajput and Dhoni. And it was a bit of a coup. Nobody else managed to do that. But many people sponsored the Dhoni film and many people did their promotions and advertising around the Dhoni film. We were the only one who got Sushant and Dhoni into a same ad film to promote the Kingfisher brand. Now again, we created a unique opportunity to do that. Now this is not digital. On digital, what we did was that we created an opportunity for people to get their names digitally printed on the Dhoni, to replace their names with Dhoni's name. And on that we got over 80,000 people on Twitter who got back to us and personalized their shirts with Dhoni shirt with their name. But what I'd like to do now is show you the film that we did with Sushant and with Dhoni.
Kingfisher, the king of good times, celebrates MS Dhoni, the untold story, now released worldwide.
So there is an example how we are alive to opportunities. Now, this is not something we had planned a year in advance. We need to be nimble, we need to be agile, we need to be able to take advantage of opportunities which come to us. When we sniffed an opportunity to be associated with Dhoni film in an interesting way, we grabbed it. Now, we got this at a fraction of the cost that we would have had to pay if we had to use Dhoni as a brand endorser independently. But this was a deal that was structured around promoting the film and using both Sushant and Dhoni in the same frame. I'll show you this next film and then I'll talk you through it.
Hi, my name is Sachin. I don't know how Mumbai Indians got to know I'm such a big fan. This is incredible stuff.
I know how you guys did it, but you made my entire year. Thank you, Rising Police Giants.
Hey Rahul, know you have been a loyal fan. Celebrate this cricket season with us and the king of good times. Hey Si, it's your support that makes us stronger.
So here's us thanking you for being the perfect 12th man.
Come join us and Kingfisher this cricket season and let the good times roll.
Hey Dinesh, we know you've got our back. So here's us giving back a little something.
And get ready to have the good time.
So here is another example of how we leverage digital, social media in ways which are very different from anybody else. Now here we had an opportunity to use the various IPL teams whom we had sponsored, and our marketing team came up with this brilliant idea of wishing people by name and sending them personalized messages on Twitter from the players. Now all of you know how a personalized message gets amplified, because if I get a personalized message from a team, I will tell 10 of my friends and they will tell 10 of their friends, and that's how the marketing message gets amplified. So we got close to 1 million people who this touched, but I would say that the actual number of people who saw, who experienced this unique whole engagement would be almost 10 million people. Another innovation we did, and this again came as an opportunity, and like I keep stressing, whilst you make plans and you have robust marketing plans, brand plans, which not only for 1 year but for 3 years, but there are times when you have to take opportunities which come to us. Now we've always wanted to be part of a television series and a web series where our brand is intrinsically a part of it. And that's a dream of every brand manager, every brand owner, that rather than advertising in the commercial time available with a program, why can't you get into the program? Now that was a strategy and that was an objective we've always had, and that opportunity came to us when people from TVF, which now is very big, it's called The Viral Fever, they do very successful web series. They had an idea to do a web series about a startup. Now, some of you may have seen this series called Pictures, and if you haven't, I would encourage you to see it because it's very entertaining. So they came with this idea that they're doing this web series about startups, and they would be happy to integrate Kingfisher into it. Now, it had to be done in a manner that didn't interfere with the creative output, yet at the same time gave benefits to us and to them. Now, I can't obviously show you the web series, but there's a small clip I'll show you which shows you how the brand was integrated into a natural situation which was part of the story of that particular episode. Can we have the film, please?
कैसे होगा भाई? कैसे मिलेगी फंडिंग यार? सबकी किस्मत आपकी तरह नहीं होती यार. तू क्या है? मैं क्या हूँ मतलब? तू क्या है? मैं एग्जीक्यूटिव रीजनल मैनेजर हूँ, नवीन बंसल हूँ, Mocha.com. अबे तू क्या है? क्या हूँ? एग्जीक्यूटिव रीजनल मैनेजर.
I mean, you see the web series, but this is again a way in which and this is the 5 episodes of this season, that I don't recall how many episodes were there actually, but there were several episodes, and the story runs. It's an interesting story about a startup. Season 2 is supposed to come next year, early next year, but we found an interesting way of being part of this whole thing. Again, this is all about brand amplification, brand association, being in the right place, at the right time, in a manner that is natural to that story, to that context. Another innovation, again, around digital. Now, today the world moves on apps. There is an app for everything. You know, an app for going out, app for sleeping, app for weather, app for anything you want to do. Now, we have created an app of our own. It is currently only in Bangalore, and it's going to get extended to other centers. It's called Pictures. Now, what is the big idea? The big idea here is that we have gone and tied up and spoken to all the premium bars and restaurants and got them onto the app. We then promote this app, and it's a bit like a Zomato for nightlife. It's been 6 months since we've launched it in Bangalore. We've got close to 100,000 downloads of active users. We're going to roll it out in Mumbai and Delhi very soon. So the big idea here is that, again, we become a part of somebody's life. And we don't say it's a Kingfisher app because, you know, a branded app is never going to be very popular. But it's a standalone app. The benefit to us is the outlets which are listed in it are our preferred consumers. Now, because of the brand that we are, most outlets would serve our brand or be preferred customers of our company. So we provide an opportunity to consumers to be able to choose which outlet to go to, depending on what kind of an event is happening, who's having what deal. And we find that we already, as I said, have close to 100,000 people who are actively using it in Bangalore. And the number is only growing. So again, this is again an example of how we at United Breweries Limited work with various elements, not just conventional advertising or conventional sales promotions, but with all the avenues available to us to communicate with consumers and become a part of their lives. Of course, our strength is that it's not only the Kingfisher brand that we have a portfolio. At the top of the line, we have Heineken, which is the brand of our joint venture partner Heineken. We have Kingfisher Ultra. We have a whole host of regional brands and specialty brands. So our portfolio is our strength. Oh, sorry. You know, you can build all the brands that you want, but you also need a supply chain. And in our country, to have a robust supply chain is very important, especially for alcohol, because as I said, alcohol is a state subject. We have 29 breweries across the country which ensure that beer is supplied at the right time, fresh, at the right place, everywhere. And there are just some pictures, some of our state-of-the-art facilities. You know, we live in a country that is inflationary. There are cost pressures all around, not just for us, for everybody. And we have very robust programs in procurement, in waste reduction, in energy management, to ensure that our costs are constantly kept under check. And I'm very proud to say that our cost inflation is always well below inflation. We are also beginning to start using renewable sources of energy. We have signed an agreement in Karnataka wherein hopefully by early next year, we've got 3 breweries in Karnataka. Our breweries in Karnataka will be run on renewable energy. You know, we have people who stay with us a long, long time. I have been in this company for over 2 decades. This is our DNA. We attract good people, we retain them, and that's what contributes also to our company and brand strength. We care for the environment. While I spoke to you very passionately about brands, I'd also like to speak to the equal passion about a commitment to environment. And one of the objectives that we have set for ourselves is that we want to be a water neutral company by 2025, which means that we will put back into ground for productive use as much water as we will consume. We already consume less water per liter of beer than all leading brewers of the world. But we also have a commitment that we will put back the water that we consume. As of April this year, we were at about 17%, which means 17% of all the fresh water we consume we put back. Initiatives which are ongoing, some which have been completed and some which will get completed before March 2017, will take us to 38% of all the fresh water that we consume being replenished. And by 2025, maybe earlier, we will be at 100%. And that's a commitment we have made. Like I said to you, we already use renewable energy in Karnataka. We are going to start programs of putting up solar facilities, solar energy facilities in some of our brewery sites in Telangana, which will again become operational through the course of next year. So we are looking actively at all ways, in manners in which we become more and more sustainable. We have a very robust CSR program. Our CSR program has 3 main pillars. One is providing safe drinking water to the communities we operate in, assisting in primary health, and assisting in primary education. Again, just a snapshot of some of the stuff we've done. These are actual pictures of where we've put up water kiosks. And all this work is done in conjunction with NGOs. It's proper CSR format. Now in Karnataka, in Telangana, and in villages near our breweries in Aurangabad, we have provided safe drinking water to the communities, and they're extremely happy to have this. We also created the first of its kind mini science centers, again in conjunction with NGO, and have set this up in 10 primary schools in Karnataka, government primary schools. Now these are pictures from those schools, and these are really, really something which we are very proud of, because these school children whom you see will benefit from that. And you know, we've had the Vice Chancellor of the Mysore University coming to inaugurate it. We've also had the Primary and Secondary Education Minister of Karnataka coming to see it. So we do this because we believe in it. Yes, we are a commercial enterprise. We will generate revenue. We have to be profitable. We have a responsibility to our shareholders and to all our stakeholders. But we also have a firm commitment to give back to communities and societies that we operate in. Again, we assist. I don't say we set up medical facilities, because that's not our objective, and we don't have the capability either. But we assist in primary health care, again in the communities we operate in. And I just like to leave you with this last slide as to what our vision is. Our vision is to lead and develop the Indian beer market and deliver best-in-class performance through excellence in product and brand portfolio, capabilities and policies. And I hope that through this short presentation, I have been able to demonstrate to you how we do that. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your presentation. Before we take questions from the team, I'll just start off with one of my own. You mentioned Heineken as being your joint venture partner, and you spoke about how you've got brands from the Heineken portfolio. If you could just also highlight about how Heineken, being there over the last 7 odd years, has helped from a manufacturing supply chain, cost, and how that can even help going forward. Any global practices that you've learned from which has helped the business at United Breweries.
We have been joint venture companies actually since 2005. Our joint venture partner in 2005 was Scottish and Newcastle, which got acquired by Heineken and Carlsberg in 2008. And as part of that acquisition, the United Breweries limited shareholding that Scottish and Newcastle had came to Heineken. So we've had the benefit of being a joint venture with leading global players for over a decade now. And yeah, clearly there are benefits. You know, there are benefits in technical know-how, benefits in access to brands. I mean, Heineken is of course the flagship brand of the Heineken company, but we also have access to other brands of theirs, and it's conceivable that in the near future there could be some other brands from their portfolio that we will launch in India. I mean, just to give you one example of technical excellence that we have imbibed, borrowed from Heineken and have found our own way of implementing is a TPM program, Total Productive Management. Heineken has embarked on TPM over 15 years, and we introduced TPM now, and it's across all our breweries. And the way TPM works is like, those of you are familiar with the concept of Kaizen, it's continuous improvement. So it's improvement through engagement at all levels. It's not just a managerial activity. You involve workmen and all people at the shop floor. So that has given us a very solid foundation by which to continue to improve our excellence in our supply chain. We also have a very robust safety program. As you know, safety is, I have not specifically spoken about it, but in any manufacturing facility, I would say in any organization in today's day and age, you start with safety because you have to ensure that you provide a safe working environment to everybody who walks in, not just the employees, but visitors, guests, and all stakeholders. And whilst we have our own safety program, we have also imbibed some of the practices from Heineken.
I have a few more, but I'll ask the audience if they have some questions to take up.
So, in most of the urban centers, especially the metros, we are slowly witnessing something which can be called a beer revolution, because if you actually go and look at places like Gurgaon, there's virtually a microbrewery around every corner, virtually. And I'm sure in Bangalore also, it'll be quite similar. So what kind of product innovation would you be looking at to sort of counter, although I know it's still a very niche market, but assuming it attains a greater proportion, what kind of product innovation would you be looking at?
It's a fair question. Not just Gurgaon, you have it's Gurgaon, Bangalore, Pune, a little bit in Mumbai. Now, I just like to draw a small distinction between a microbrewery and a brew pub. What you see in Gurgaon, Bangalore, they are brew pubs, which means that they can brew beer and sell only within the premise in which they brew. So it's so we have looked at it, and we have seen clearly they're growing and they are there to stay. Now the question that an organization like ours has to ask is, do we have the capability to be in an F&B space? Because ultimately it's a restaurant. They're not organizations which have 20 outlets. They are all individual brew pubs which operate in a niche segment as a restaurant. Now, at this point of time, we will not get into a brew pub business because it's too niche, it's too retail. We do not have the capability or the appetite for it. However, there is another trend which you see not so much in India, but you see in parts of the developed world of beer, which are craft beers, which are again specialty beers which have been launched initially by standalone small companies, but now everybody, Heineken and EBI, everybody has their own craft beer brands. Essentially these are slightly different. They have a little bit more story to it, a little bit more development process to it. Now, will we do that? We perhaps will. We perhaps will evaluate the right time and place, but I don't see us getting into brew pubs. But they are there. I would say that the good thing they do is that they help build the beer culture, and the not so good thing they do is they take away our consumers for that evening.
No, my question is actually more along the lines of the product per se, not the platform rather. So, you know, you have wheat beers which are becoming increasingly popular. So something to counter that.
We're looking
and the fact that you mentioned craft beer, I think Bira is also doing pretty well currently. So something.
You're right. We're looking at that. We're actively looking at that, and you know, that's something which we just have to find the right time to do it. It's got the right time to do it, and I'm sure we will.
Sure. Thank you.
Maybe in the meantime I can take another one. You know, you spoke about ABI as well just now, and you know, globally there is a big merger that's happening at the ABI SAB Miller level. In India, SAB Miller is a large enough player, though ABI does not have much of a presence. I know it might be a bit of conjecture, but you know, how do you see that evolving? Maybe even from an India perspective, you know, and also obviously we've done enough and more to combat number 2, number 3 players. But do you see that as a potential, you know, large challenge over the next 2 or 3 years, you know, going forward, because it's 2 of the potentially largest players in the world?
But clearly, when the world's number 1 and number 2 brewer come together, it's an event. So an event of that kind will have implications for India too, clearly. So we are mindful of that. As you rightly said, SAB is a large player, is the number 2 player in India today, and ABI, by virtue of their limited portfolio, is a relatively small player. But through this acquisition in India, ABI gets the foothold of much larger organization of SAB, and it will be a bigger competitor. So instead of having one large and one small competitor, we will have one larger competitor to deal with, and yes, it's a challenge for everybody.
Thanks very much for your presentation. A couple of questions. First is on GST. I couldn't see the slide and also didn't quite get your message, but I'd like to get some idea of how much the current status of GST is going to hurt you, and how much, if we were to go to a stage 2 of GST, where beer was brought under the umbrella too, how much that would benefit you. That's question number 1. Question number 2 is, when I look at your stock, it's trading on a high multiple, which means you have a valuable currency. Do you intend to ever employ it either domestically or overseas to grow inorganically?
So to the GST question, just to amplify, GST is going to be a reality in this country either from 1st of April 17 or very soon after that. Now, it is a groundbreaking legislation which is going to make a huge difference to the way business is done in India, because going from production tax, it's going to be a consumption tax. So with every element in the value being taxed. And the benefit of that is that you clearly have A, visibility, and B, you get credits on tax already paid in the chain. Now, the government, for a variety of political reasons, and the key reason being that alcohol is a state subject and they didn't want to displease the states and take this away and put it under the center. They could have had GST as well as state excise working, which is how it works in most parts of the world. There is a VAT and a separate alcohol tax. But the government of India, in its wisdom, decided that it was not feasible. So the adverse impact of this on our business is clearly that the GST tax that we'll pay on our inputs will become a locked tax, because we'll not get any input credits. Now, we buy, all the material that we buy is actually GST-able. We buy bottles and labels and cartons and agri-inputs, etc. So on all of them today, we pay either state excise duty or state excise duty and local sales tax, depending on what the tax is in different states. Now, when GST comes in, we will still pay, but we'll pay GST. Now, the positive, the way we see it, is that, and I think that's been the feedback which the government has got, not just from us, because we are also actively in dialogue through our association with the GST Council and various other stakeholders. And I think across industry, they've realized that by having one GST rate at, let's say, 18% is going to be inflationary for this country. So the very fact that they've brought in 4 slabs, I think is a way forward, and we may be able to find a situation whilst we will not be able to tell you exactly what the impact would be till the government puts the various categories into their various tax brackets. But clearly, having one tax rate at 18% would have been very negative for us. But having different categories and falling into different slab rates will be a little less negative. But hopefully by end of this month, maybe December, we will know exactly where each element would fall into, and we'll have a clearer picture. Yes, you're right. If we are in GST, the big benefit to us would be that we will be part of a national legislation, which we would want to be, because it's always good to be part of a central government legislation rather than be only subject to 25 or 29 different states where we operate. Part of the question is in terms of a multiple. Yes, we are traded at a very high multiple, but you know the way our structure of UBL is that we have about 44% ownership of Heineken and 30% by UB Group, and balance is in the hands of investors, both institutional as well as private. So at this point of time, we are not looking to use that for any foray outside. It's the shareholding of this company is such that we will be focused. Yeah, we have been and will continue to be working towards making the Kingfisher brand more international. And we have a presence, albeit small. We have a presence in Australia and New Zealand. We have a license arrangement with Asahi, which dates back to Asahi acquiring the company which we operate with. We have an organization of our own through a license in the UK, which manufactures, actually Heineken manufacturers for us in UK, and that distributed in the UK and Europe. We also have trading exports to Singapore and other parts of Asia. So we will continue to focus on the Kingfisher brand development outside, but not beyond
that. At the risk of sounding like a broken record, I have to ask you this. The way people look at consumption in the near term has changed over the last week. Just wanted, your thoughts from a near term as well as a medium to long term perspective on how do you view it for the business as well as for consumption as a whole.
When you don't have 100 rupee notes, it's not so easy to buy beer. But hopefully that will change very soon, and in the short run, yes, there will be some pain for the trade. And I mean, I have personally been witness on a few days back in Calcutta, where I found a consumer walked into a retail outlet and offered a 2,000 rupee note to buy something worth 200 or 300, and the retailer sent him away because he didn't have change. Now, it is a genuine consumer, so it's likely to happen, but I would say that this is very temporary. I would think that this will resolve itself, because it's, there are much larger issues at play in this, and we've heard in pre-lunch session also the implications of this are much larger than a short-term, let's say, shortfall in retail sales. And hopefully all this will be very good for the country and good for the economy, and we will all prosper.
One question which I had was, you focused a lot on marketing, branding, communication. How do you manage things which are said negatively about individuals who might be associated with the company before, or stuff like that, so the brand gets associated with individuals, and if there is negative press about them, it kind of might get impacted or will get reflected on the brand. How do you manage that?
You know, you're right, it can. It can. I don't want to say that it can't. It can. What we find is that our message to our consumers, and let's say all our stakeholders, let's talk of our stakeholders first, not just consumers. We're very clear that this company is not about any one individual. We are a joint venture company. We are a stock listed company. We have very clear our shareholding. We have 44% holding of Heineken, 30% of UB Group in its various capacities, and rest is in private hands. So that's one thing which we consistently communicate. Two, this business is managed by a board on which there are eminent independent directors. We have 6 independent directors. We have, of course, representatives of both Heineken as well as UB. So in terms of governance and in terms of management, it is not about one individual. It's about a corporate entity. And therefore, the organization is focused on the business of building brands, building capabilities, building processes, which is why I left the last slide of a vision. It's about being the best in class in terms of brands, capabilities, policies and processes, because that's what we genuinely, fervently believe in. And nobody in this organization is related to any one individual who may have or may not have majority shareholding. It's a company run by professionals. And like I said, end of the day, we deal in consumer brands, and any consumer brand is about being desirable and wanted by consumers, and that's what we always focus on.
Thank you for taking this question. On the GST regime, so you highlighted there are 4 slabs of rates, and depending on the rates, you may be hurt depending on what slab your raw material are put in. So 2 questions here. So after GST comes in, liquor and beer will remain a state subject. So that means the pricing will be decided by state. So that what is happening today will remain same in the GST regime. That's the first part. And second, assume that the rates are at 12% for most of the category, and also on the recycled bottle, the rates goes up from 4 to 12%. How much will it impact us?
Your first question, you've given the answer yourself. It's right. It will remain a state subject. So, you know, in the way this business operates, in many states, the state decides the price at which it will be consumed. By and large, they decide the taxes, they decide at which price they will buy from us. So nothing of that changes. What will change is that we also have to be registered on GST in every state. So though as a business, our product is excluded from GST, but we have to be a GST registered company in every state. So we are not excluded from being part of the GST framework. So that is an additional complication. That's part of our business. And therefore, what changes to us is that our import materials will be GST-able. Now, like I mentioned a little earlier, we're still, of course, we have done various scenarios of quantification of the negative impact. But at this point of time, I would like to not give you a number. I would like to wait for a few more weeks to see, because there are various permutations and combinations. The only thing which I think is very certain is that the service tax rate will be 18% and not 15%. I think that's the one thing which is 100% certain. What is not certain is where different elements will fall. Now, for example, will malt come in 12 or 18? Will cartons come in 6 or 12? Now, where does freight come in? Now, as you know, today the freight works in a reverse charge mechanism, where you pay service tax with a 70% abatement. So whereas there is 15% service tax, but with 70% abatement, the effective tax rate on freight today, not just for us, for everybody, is 4.5%. Now, We don't know where that will come because it will impact not just us, even if freight goes to 12 or 18. Whilst companies who are under GST and categories will get set-off benefit, but the set-off will be at a higher rate. So therefore it will have a cascading impact on everybody. So at this point in time, there's still lack of clarity where items of agri-inputs will fit in, where freight will sit, and where used bottles will sit. But it will be somewhere between 6 and 12. And once that is clear, we'll be able to give you a better answer of what the impact would be.
There are no chances you will get set off, for example, the advertisement you do, or few of the other places where you pay service tax, won't you get set off in the GST regime?
My understanding is that the set-off has to be within the same value, so within the same activity. So you can't buy bottles and get a set-off in advertising. So it has to be within the same transaction. So, but all these clarifications will come.
Thank you, Mr. Ramamurthy, for your deep insights on the business, the promotional activities, and everything else that is going to affect your business going forward. We would like to present you with a small token of our appreciation for being with us this afternoon.